The night shift customer who would not leave. I took the night shift because I needed the money and nobody else wanted to work those hours. Midnight to 8 in the morning at a gas station on the edge of town where the highway met empty fields and the only customers were truckers passing through or people too desperate or too drunk to wait until morning. My manager told me it was easy money. Just ring up cigarettes and coffee, keep the floors clean, restock shelves when it was quiet. She said nothing ever happened during the night shift. She was wrong. It was a Tuesday in July, around 2 in the morning, when he first walked in. The bell above the door chimed and I looked up from the magazine I was pretending to read. He was tall, maybe 6 foot, wearing a dark jacket, even though it was summer and the heat outside was still thick and heavy. He didn't look at me right away. He walked slowly down the aisles, picking up items and putting them back. Not like someone shopping, but like someone killing time. I watched him on the security monitor behind the counter. Something about the way he moved made my stomach tighten. He came to the register with a pack of gum. I scanned it and told him the price. He paid in cash, exact change. And when he handed me the money, our fingers touched and his skin was cold. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and his eyes were flat and empty in a way that made me want to step back. But I was behind the counter and there was nowhere to go. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You are here alone," he said. It was not a question. I nodded, trying to keep my face neutral, trying not to show that his words had sent ice through my chest. He took his gum and left. I thought that was the end of it. I went back to my magazine, tried to focus on the words, but my hands were shaking. 10 minutes later, the bell chimed again. I looked up, and it was him. He walked the same slow path through the aisles, touching things, moving things, watching me through the space between the shelves. This time he bought a bottle of water. Same routine, exact change. That same cold smile. "You should not be working alone," he said. "It is not safe." Then he left again. My heart was pounding. I pulled out my phone and thought about calling my manager or the police, but what would I say? A customer came in twice and said weird things. That didn't sound like enough. I told myself I was overreacting, that plenty of people come into gas stations in the middle of the night and act strange because they were tired or high or just awkward. But my gut was screaming that something was wrong. He came back a third time, 20 minutes later. This time he didn't buy anything. He just stood by the door looking at me. I pretended to be busy organizing lottery tickets behind the counter, but I could feel his eyes on me. The store was completely silent except for the hum of the refrigerators and the buzz of the fluorescent lights. After what felt like forever, he walked toward the counter. My hand moved toward the panic button under the register, the one my manager showed me on the first day of work and told me only to use in real emergencies. He leaned against the counter, too close, invading the space between us. "What time do you get off?" he asked. His voice was quiet, almost friendly, but there was something underneath it that made my skin crawl. I lied and said my coworker was coming in soon, that I was about to go home. He smiled again, that same empty smile. "No, they are not," he said. "I've been watching you. You are alone until 8. That is when I knew. This was not a weird customer. This was someone who had been planning something, someone who had watched the gas station, figured out when I was alone, came back multiple times just to make sure. My hand was on the panic button now, but I hadn't pressed it yet. I didn't want to make him angry. I didn't know what he would do if I made him angry. He reached across the counter fast, faster than I expected, and grabbed my wrist. His grip was hard, painful. His fingers were digging into my skin. "Come outside with me," he said. His voice was still quiet, but there was no friendliness left in it now. Just command, just threat. I pulled back, tried to twist my arm free, but he was strong, and he was leaning over the counter now, half his body across it, pulling me toward him. I screamed. I didn't think about it. I just opened my mouth and screamed as loud as I could, and with my free hand I slammed down on the panic button. The alarm went off instantly, a shrieking siren that filled the store, and red lights started flashing outside above the gas pumps. He let go of my wrist and stepped back, his face twisting with anger. He looked at the door, looked at me, looked at the cameras he must have known were recording everything. He ran. He turned and bolted out the door just as I heard the sirens in the distance, police responding to the panic alarm. I stood behind the counter, shaking so hard I thought my legs would give out. My wrist throbbed where he had grabbed me. The door was still swinging from where he had shoved it open. I could see his car peeling out in the parking lot, tires screeching, headlights disappearing down the highway. The police arrived 3 minutes later. They found me sitting on the floor behind the counter, crying, unable to stop shaking. They checked the security footage. It showed everything. Him coming in multiple times. Him watching me. Him grabbing me. Him trying to drag me toward the door. The officer who took my statement said I did everything right. He said the panic button probably saved my life. He said men like that don't just grab someone and let go. They have plans. They have intentions. And those intentions are never good. They never caught him. His car had fake plates. The security footage wasn't clear enough to get a good look at his face. He became another unsolved case. Another dangerous man out there somewhere, maybe trying the same thing with someone else, working another late shift at another gas station in another town. The thought of that makes me sick. The thought that he's still out there, still watching, still waiting for the right moment to grab someone who might not have a panic button, or might not scream loud enough, or might not be lucky enough to have police close by when the alarm goes off. I quit the next day. I couldn't go back to that store, couldn't stand behind that counter where he had grabbed me, couldn't look at that door without seeing him walk through it again and again. My manager was understanding. Said she'd have to quit too. She said she never should have scheduled someone alone on the night shift. But understanding did not pay my bills, and I needed another job, fast. I found work at a coffee shop that closed at 6 in the evening. No night shifts, no being alone, no empty parking lots and dark highways and men who smile with empty eyes. But even there, even during the day with coworkers around and customers lined up and sunlight streaming through the windows, I would still freeze up sometime when a tall man in a dark jacket would walk in. I'd still check the exits. I still kept my phone in my pocket with emergency services on speed dial. I still have nightmares where I feel his hand on my wrist and hear his voice telling me to come outside with him. The worst part wasn't what happened. The worst part was knowing how close I came to being a different kind of story. Not someone who fought back and survived, but someone who disappeared from a gas station in the middle of the night and was never seen again. A missing persons case with security footage as their last moments. Family members crying on the news. Searches that turned up nothing. I survived because I screamed and pressed a button, because police happened to be close enough to respond fast, because he decided running was better than staying. That is all that separated me from the others who did not make it home. If you work night shifts alone, please be careful. Trust your gut. And when someone makes you uncomfortable, don't worry about being rude or overreacting. Press the panic button. Call the police, scream, do whatever you have to stay safe. Because there are people out there who watch and wait and plan, who see someone alone and vulnerable and decide that person is their next target. I was that target once. I got lucky. Not everyone does.
Working the overnight shift at a hotel sounds easier than it actually is. Most people think you just sit at the front desk, check in a few late arrivals, maybe answer the phone once or twice, and spend the rest of the night watching movies or doing homework. But the reality is different. The reality is being alone in a building with dozens of rooms and hallways and stairwells, responsible for the safety of sleeping guests, with nobody to call if something goes wrong, except the police, who might take 10 or 15 minutes to arrive. That is a long time when you are alone with someone dangerous. It was a Thursday night in March when he first walked into the lobby. I was sitting at the front desk, going through emails when I heard the automatic doors slide open. I looked up and saw a man in his late 30s, average height, wearing jeans and a hoodie, hands in his pockets. He looked around the lobby slowly, taking in the layout, the cameras, the hallways that led to different wings of the hotel. Then he walked up to the desk. I asked if I could help him. He said he was thinking about getting a room but wanted to see what was available first. I pulled up the booking system and started going through options, showing him photos of different room types, explaining prices and amenities. He barely looked at the screen. He was looking past me, at the door behind the desk that led to the back offices, at the security monitor showing different hallways, at the key card machine. After a few minutes, he said he would think about it and come back later. Then he left. Something about the interaction felt off, but I could not put my finger on what. He had not done anything threatening or strange. He just asked about rooms and left. But the way he looked around, the way he studied the lobby instead of the room options, made my stomach feel tight. I told myself I was being paranoid, that working alone at night was making me jumpy. I went back to my emails and tried to forget about it. 20 minutes later, the doors opened again. Same man, same hoodie. He walked in and headed straight for the hallway that led to the guest rooms. I called out to him, asked if he needed help finding something. He stopped and turned around, that same blank expression on his face. "Just looking for the vending machines," he said. I told him the vending machines were in the other hallway, pointed in the right direction. He nodded and walked the way I pointed, but slowly, looking into every alcove and doorway, like he was mapping the building in his head. He came back to the lobby 5 minutes later. No drink, no snacks, nothing to suggest he had actually used the vending machines. He walked past the desk without looking at me and went out the front doors. I watched him through the windows. He did not get into a car. He did not walk toward the parking lot. He just stood outside under the awning, looking at his phone, occasionally glancing back at the lobby. My hands were shaking now. I picked up the desk phone and almost called the police, but what would I say? A man came into the hotel twice and walked around? That did not sound like an emergency. I pulled out my cell phone instead and texted my manager, told her there was a suspicious person hanging around the lobby. She responded immediately. "Lock yourself in the back office if you feel unsafe. Call the police if he tries anything. I will be there in 20 minutes. I felt a tiny bit of relief knowing she was on her way, but 20 minutes suddenly felt like forever. I kept watching the man through the windows. He was still there, still looking at his phone, still glancing at the lobby. Then he put his phone away and walked back inside. This time he did not come to the desk. He walked straight toward the hallway that led to the employee areas, the places guests are not supposed to go. I stood up fast, my heart pounding. "Sir, you cannot go back there. That is staff only." He stopped and looked at me, and for the first time his expression changed. He smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. It was cold and knowing, like he was testing me, seeing what I would do. "I am just looking for the bathroom," he said. I pointed to the guest bathroom on the other side of the lobby, my voice shaking. He stood there for a moment longer, still smiling, then walked slowly toward the bathroom. I did not take my eyes off him. He went inside and I heard the lock click. I grabbed the office phone and dialed the police. I told the dispatcher there was a man repeatedly entering the hotel, trying to access restricted areas, making me feel unsafe. She asked if he had threatened me or tried to hurt me. I said no, but that something was very wrong. that I was alone and scared. She said she would send officers immediately. I thanked her and hung up, my whole body shaking. The bathroom door opened. He walked out slowly, looking directly at me. No pretense now of being a confused guest. He walked toward the desk and I stepped back, putting as much distance between us as possible. My hand was on the back office door handle, ready to run inside and lock it. "Where are the stairs to the second floor?" he asked. His voice was calm, but his eyes were not. His eyes were sharp and focused and calculating. I did not answer. I just stared at him, my hand tightening on the door handle. He took a step closer to the desk. I could hear sirens in the distance, faint but getting louder. He heard them too. His head tilted slightly, listening, and then his whole body language changed. The calm mask dropped. He looked angry, frustrated, like I had ruined something he had been planning. He turned and walked fast toward the front doors. I watched him leave, watched him cross the parking lot and disappear into the darkness beyond the lights. The police arrived 2 minutes later. I was sitting in the back office with the door locked, crying, unable to stop shaking. The officers checked the building, looked at the security footage, took my statement. They said the man had been casing the hotel, figuring out the layout, testing how much he could get away with before I called for help. They said people like that are usually planning to rob the place or hurt someone, and that my instinct to call when I did probably stopped whatever he was planning. They checked the guest rooms to make sure everyone was safe. They stayed in the lobby until my manager arrived. When they ran his description through their system, they found he was wanted in another city for burglary. He had broken into 2 other hotels in the past year, waited until the overnight worker was distracted or away from the desk, then gone through guest rooms stealing wallets and laptops and anything valuable he could carry. In one case, he had assaulted a worker who tried to stop him. The police said I was lucky. They said if I had not called when I did, he might have waited until I was alone in the back office and then done something much worse than theft. I quit 2 weeks later. I could not work overnight shifts anymore, could not sit at that desk knowing how vulnerable I'd been, how close I came to being alone in that building with someone dangerous. My manager understood. She said the hotel would start scheduling 2 people for overnight shifts from now on, that nobody should have to work alone like that. But the change came too late for me. The damage was already done. Mom, I still have nightmares about that night. I dream that I'm back at the desk, that the doors open and he walks in again, that this time the police do not come in time and I am trapped in the back office with him outside the door. I wake up sweating, my heart racing, checking the locks on my apartment even though I know I am safe. The fear he planted that night grew roots and I cannot pull them out. The worst part is thinking about what could have happened. What if I had not texted my manager? What if I had not called the police? What if he had gotten into the back office before help arrived? Those what-ifs keep me up at night, reminding me how thin the line is between safety and danger, between a normal shift and a tragedy. If you work overnight shifts alone at hotels or gas stations or anywhere isolated, please be careful. Trust your gut when someone makes you uncomfortable. Do not worry about being rude or calling the police over nothing. The person who keeps coming back, who asks too many questions, who tries to go places they should not be, is not confused. They are planning. And you do not want to be there when their plan goes into action. I called for help when I did, and I survived. Not everyone is that lucky.